What's up, everybody? Hope you're all doing well tonight. Got a lot going on, and I found some interesting stuff. I saw in the Discord that there was a Norwegian uh, former prime minister who's caught up in this Epstein stuff and had apparently tried to end his own life, but it's kind of sketchy there. But he was also in charge of the Nobel Prize, like who got the Nobel Prize. So then I started looking like, did this guy give the Nobel Prize to any of Epstein's scientist friends? And I found two of them that actually did get the Nobel Prize, like, right in the same time that this guy was giving them out, and also, this was one of the things that he was using for leverage over Bill Gates. He was trying to, like, entice Bill Gates into his life with the potential of him getting a Nobel Prize, and then, of course, all this other stuff, came out about Bill Gates today as well. What's up, everybody in the chat? Steph, Jason, Daniel. Good to see you all. Heku Benar. Mas Calabos. Por favor. Hopefully I got them close to right. But yeah, first I want to start out with a couple things that I noticed. Like last night I did the a little bit of the State of the Union. I couldn't handle that much of it. But there were a couple things that I noticed afterwards that I didn't point out yesterday. Um, and let's get this up here. Howard Lutnick right here. So not only does he enter this place with no shame whatsoever, like he's entering like he looks like he's making a WWE entrance in this clip. And he walks right up to Chuck Schumer, who is like barely visible in this, and you can and he's like shaking his hand and smiling. So let's see here. Look at him just strutting. Chuck Schumer right there. You could see his head. He's the third person. You could recognize him anywhere. See, like the confidence that he's entering that room with is disturbing. And the response from Democrats has been kind of rough to some extent, like usual. Um, they're trying to like really, really push this woman out here, and in 17 seconds here, you could tell like why I feel the way I feel.
After working in law enforcement, I continued my career of service as a CIA officer, working undercover to protect the United States and our allies from global threats, terrorism, nuclear weapons, and the aggression of adversarial nations around the globe. After working
A former CIA officer, like no, like you're not gonna make that happen. I don't think anybody's gonna go for that now. With all this talk about, yeah, I mean it was bad. But I can't get it much higher, unfortunately. But basically she was bragging about her time in the CIA as an undercover CIA agent and how she fought against our adversaries and nuclear weapons. The only adversaries are the, pedo politicians and billionaires that have taken over this planet. Or not, well, planet, yes, but country is what I meant to say. They are the adversaries, not random people in some other part of the planet. It's ridiculous. And this kind of goes along with that. There was this report out today that the corporate Democrats leading the party are working behind the scenes to stop a vote on the Ro Khanna Thomas Massey Iran War Powers Resolution. this would be a resolution that would force Trump to get congressional permission to to carry out war, basically, which is something that should have happened a long time ago. I think even half of the Bush wars were never approved by Congress, except for the first one that he talked everybody into. But and then Obama, I think, just went and did the same thing. But yeah, it should already be constitutional law, but they're doing it anyway. And I guess that kind of begs the question: are they just going to not listen again if you just pass the law? Um, but regardless, it really shows that something is wrong here. I mean, we knew this, that there was a kind of uniparty on foreign policy. I should look into that browser for sure. Thanks. I'll look into that. So yeah, I think that th- this kind of stuff has probably been going on for a long time, but is now becoming more public. Um, and I think there was a time during the Obama era where people just bought into the foreign policy of that we're dropping peace bombs on people, and we're saving democracy, and all the excuses. And the anti-war movement that was really strong during Bush that I was a part of kind of died off. And I feel like the Free Palestine movement has probably brought it back in a big way, and luckily it has been sustained through both Democrat and Republican administrations at this point. So I feel like now the kind of spotlight is on this kind of thing more. And there is this battle within the Democratic Party right now about whether it is going to whether this next election that they're going to be, if it's going to be more centrist, like they tried last time, or if it's going to be more like, AOC, Bernie, Zora Mandami kind of messaging. And I mean, the people who are in charge of the party currently are the centrists, who are basically right wingers. So I'm trying to look through if there's anything I could isolate here, but it's basically saying that they're working with, of course, APAC and other organizations. Let's see what it says. I asked Schumer's office last week whether he supports Trump's potential strikes and whether escalation into a broader regional conflict is a risk he considers acceptable. His office did not respond to any request for comment. Days later, and only after the drop site report was published, Schumer's office issued a minimal statement in support for congressional war powers. And this is the same thing we saw with Elizabeth Warren. Like, she was posting online about how no war with Iran. And then yesterday, during that circus, when he's talking about not allowing Iran to get a nuclear bomb, which, I don't even really think they're trying to anyway. And if they are, that's their business during this, even though it was one of those, like, you know, situations where the Democrats weren't standing up for anything, like it usually is with these things. But they always both stand up for war, and that's one. See, look, there she is. Let's say.
Continue starting it all over. We wiped it out and they want to start all over again. And are at this moment again pursuing their sinister ambitions. We are in negotiations with them. They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference.
But yeah, like that is definitely something that they both agree on. And when it comes to the centrist or right wing Democrats, they also tend to agree on most of the economic stuff too. It's they just provide lip service to you know, lowering prices or whatever, but they're never really specific about the policies. Um, I'm definitely hoping that the further left flank of the party actually is able to overcome that and get a hold of them. You know, I haven't been convinced in a very long time. I mean, you know, I haven't really looked at electoral politics in like 20 years since Trump. I preferred to fight things from outside of the system. You know, I voted for Nader in 2004, and then ever since then, I was just like, you know, fuck the system. Let's fight from the outside. But you know, Trump has made me really, really second guess a lot of that.
Right now, in reports of a deadly confrontation in Cuban territorial
Oh yeah,
waters between.
while we're on the topic of foreign policy, today there was this crazy thing that went down in Cuba. Apparently, there was a boat approaching, um, you know, Cuban waters or even close to the land. The Coast Guard approached them, and uh, they started shooting the Coast Guard, according to Cuba, and they killed everybody on the boat. And the boat was registered in Florida, but the interesting thing was every news station, you know, across the political spectrum initially uh, turned it into this massive thing, like, you know, Cuba shot Americans for no reason. And it turns out that it was actually Cubans who were returning. And according to Cuba, they were trying to carry out a terrorist attack, which you know, immediately makes me think like Bay of Pigs, which I'll get into in a minute, but let's take a look at this. What?
Cuban troops and people on an American registered speedboat. Here's what we know at this hour. Cuba's Ministry of the Interior says a speedboat, they say, with a Florida registration opened fire on Cuban border guard troops this morning. The ministry says it happened when the troops approached the American boat to request identification and that the commander of the Cuban vessel was injured. The ministry says the troops then returned fire, killing 4 people aboard that boat and injuring 6 others in the confrontation. The injured have been taken back to Cuba to be treated medically. Again, this is all coming right now from the Cuban government. So as we get more information, we will bring it to you. I do want to bring in NBC.
This report came out later, so it's a little bit more truthful, but the initial reports were pretty bad, and they're still all over like Twitter and stuff where, you know, they're saying that it's like war posting basically.
Senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez. And Gabe, this is such
like acting like it's going to be some escalation between the US and Cuba, which things are escalating right now, but I don't think that this in particular is going to be the breaking point.
serious situation because of the rhetoric between the United States and the Cuban government. Just recently, I think less than 2 weeks ago, the Cuban president, the leader of Cuba, saying that Cuba was ready for war with the United States in the wake of what's happened in Venezuela and that they were on alert for anything that might happen there. Again, sometimes these incidents happen in those waters. We should mention the location where this happened is very close to the Bahamian border as well, where there's usually lots of both drug smuggling and people smuggling as well. Cubans trying to flee the communist oppression there. What do we know right now coming from either our Coast Guard or the White House?
They're
right
really
now,
trying to flee the impacts of US sanctions. And that's the one thing that they never say. And it's like what we have been doing to Cuba, or what the US government has been doing to Cuba, I shouldn't take responsibility, is is very, very similar to what Israel has done to Gaza. Of course, it's on a much different scale there because, you know, there's nowhere to go. But we are effectively trying to starve Cuba in a very similar fashion. And it's been happening for, you know, decades now. But you know, they have enough land where they can still grow their own crops and stuff. And previously, they were getting a lot of, they were getting trade from places like Venezuela, but that's definitely not happening anymore.
There are a lot of unanswered questions right now. We are out to White House officials trying to get any more details on this. But so far, as you said, all we know is from the Cuban side at this point. They say 4 people are dead and 6 others on that boat, which was registered in Florida, have been injured. And also, Tom, another border guard troop from the Cuban side was also wounded, according to the Cuban government. Now, this all comes, as you said, amid ramped up tensions between the two countries in the wake of the capture of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. There have been significant fuel shortages in Cuba over the last few weeks. And there have been questions about what the U.S. plans to do next year. The president himself recently saying that he expects the Cuban government to fall. And, Tom, right now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in the Caribbean, in the island of St. Kitts and Nevis, meeting with Caribbean leaders. Again, we're out to the State Department as well for any comment. But, Tom, a lot of unanswered questions here about who exactly was on that boat and what led to this confrontation.
And, Gabe, right now, the only information we're getting from the U.S. government is coming from elected representatives in Congress from South Florida who are putting this news out there. But again, we're not hearing from the State Department or anyone else just yet.
Not yet. Again, we're still awaiting any confirmation about who exactly was on that boat. But it comes as, there has been this huge military buildup on the other side of the Caribbean. And also the Trump administration has been really escalating its rhetoric towards the Cuban government. Secretary of State Rubio, of course, is Cuban American and has made a large part of his political career being very, wanting to topple essentially the Cuban government, the communist.
Wasn't it his? No, it was Ted Cruz whose family, I think he said fled, but then they fled Batista, which was the U.S. backed dictator, not Castro.
Government there. But again, at this point, we do not have any details about who was on that boat.
We thank you. As we look at this map here, I'm going to bring in Jose Diaz-Balart. Guys, let's put that map back up. I want to show the viewers exactly where this is happening right now. Jose, talk our viewers through the location here, right? Because again, where you see that little white dot at the top of northwest Cuba, this is where the incident, according to the Cubans, happened, 1 nautical mile off those.
That's really close.
Keys off the north of Cuba. So this is very close to the Bahamian border. Again, Sal Bank, which is an area people go to fish, but also people where they go to drop off sometimes Cubans that they are smuggling, Cuban refugees that are trying to leave the island. Jose, we can't stress enough, this is such a sort of strenuous time right now between the U.S. and Cuba has made it very clear they are on alert for any type of U.S. attack or any type of incursion that would happen in their country.
Indeed, Tom. And, it's striking to remember sometimes that Cuba is 90 miles away from Key West. And so the proximity of the island to not only Florida, but to the Bahamas, which is really a skip and a jump away, there are a lot of questions. And so far, the only source about this incident comes from the Cuban regime. Important to recognize and also remember that regime has oftentimes utilized humans for political purposes, sometimes releasing political prisoners when an American celebrity comes to the island or some person who requests that some.
What is this tangent?
Political prisoners are released. We have to also remember that it was the 24th of February, 1996, 30 years ago yesterday, that 2 small Cessnas from Brothers to the Rescue, a South Florida organization that was seeking rafters leaving the island, was shot down over international waters by the Cuban regime. 4 people were killed, 3 citizens, 1 American resident.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated.
That guy seemed like he had a little bit of agenda, didn't he? It's really bad. Traditional media definitely sucks, and so does the new quote unquote new media as well. This story came out today about this MAGA influencer, Johnny MAGA, who has this like brown PFP. Probably pretending that he's like a Trump fan of color, you know what I mean? But he's often posting a bunch of racist bullshit. And it's run by this guy named Garrett Wade, who's a White House staffer. So he's like on the government payroll. This article from Wired came out today. I wanted to post that though, because it had his little like pixelated fake CryptoPunk. So let's take a look at this selection from the Wired article. This isn't just a regular account. Johnny MAGA appears to be actually a White House staffer named Garrett Wade, who works for the Trump administration as a rapid response manager, helping to run the very same White House account his anonymous MAGA account amplifies. A phone number associated with Wade is linked to Johnny MAGA, according to a Wired review of publicly available records and the connection was confirmed by a source close to the White House. Wade and the White House did not respond to requests for comment. It's already come out that so many of these top MAGA accounts are either bot farms in other countries, yup, or they're actually members of the administration somehow. The Johnny MAGA account was created in September 2021, according to its X profile. It originally used a different handle, which referenced Wade's birth year, according to records reviewed by Wired. While the account's earliest available post focused on NFTs, it has been consistent pro-Trump presence since at least 2022. The operator of the Johnny MAGA account has not disclosed an official relationship with the White House while operating the Johnny MAGA X account. Multiple media outlets, including Mother Jones Town Hall and the New York Post, have all linked out to posts of the Johnny MAGA account seemingly as organic reflections of public sentiment on political issues. Yeah, I mean, this guy has been definitely LARPing as an average citizen, you know what I mean? And it really, really makes you think about all the astroturfing campaigns that are happening, especially within in this situation with this administration.
Another day, another round.
Today is that Larry Summers has finally stepped down from his positions at Harvard, and Bill Gates has admitted to the Gates Foundation that he did, quote unquote, have an affair with 2 Russian women, just like were described in Epstein's letter to himself, which I feel like this puts even more credibility on the letters that Epstein has written to himself. Gates confirmed he insisted that he had nothing to do with any of Epstein's crimes and that they were above age and very accomplished women or whatever. But there's a lot of things that's very, very sketch. Oh, thanks for viewing and chatting. Really happy to have you here. Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he said was women. But there is a lot to unpack with both his statement and everything around it. Not to mention, you know, if Epstein is introducing your dates, there's problems. No matter how old they are, because there's a chance that they've known him since they were very young, you know, and that, yeah.
Of notable figures continuing to answer for their connections to Jeffrey Epstein, including former Harvard president and U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates. And both Bill and Hillary Clinton tonight are preparing to talk about Epstein in testimony to Congress. Justice correspondent Scott McFarland has all the new developments.
More big Epstein problems for more big names. Larry Summers, a former Clinton administration Treasury Secretary, says he'll retire from his remaining post at Harvard University after November's release of some Epstein files showed dozens of messages between the men, including one in which Epstein appeared to call himself Summers' wingman and talked about how Summers should approach a woman they both knew.
So, yeah, a woman they both knew. It was his mentee, I'm pretty sure. Like, this guy right here was getting tips on how to creep on some woman that he was mentoring, a very young college age woman that he was mentoring. So, like, that is just some creep shit, man. Like, come on.
Was not accused of wrongdoing.
And, like, they're not even mentioning that in half of these things. Like, that just seems, yeah.
You know, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that.
Meanwhile, Bill Gates has apologized to the staff of his foundation after the files revealed Gates had met with Epstein years after Epstein's guilty plea to a sex offense. According to the Wall Street Journal, Gates acknowledged affairs with Russian women, but said, "I did nothing illicit. I saw nothing illicit." President Trump made...
He said the one woman was a professional bridge player or something like that. So I guess he's like doxing them now. And I'm like, that I don't know, like, that doesn't change anything, like, you know, women who are in that situation are often extremely talented at things. I'm not sure why that is supposed to be some kind of, like, uh, you know, it actually kind of reveals a kind of a gross mentality, uh, that I can't quite describe, but maybe I will be able to by the end of the
No
video.
mention Tuesday night of the Epstein survivors or his Department of Justice's decision to withhold millions of pages of files from public review, despite the presence of survivors in the House chamber. Did it surprise you there were no references to the survivors?
Goodness, I wish I could say it surprised me, and I was not surprised. Disappointed and let down. Yes, but I wasn't necessarily surprised, unfortunately.
The top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee says documents from an Epstein survivor who reportedly accused Trump of sexual misconduct in the 1980s are missing from the publicly released batches.
So our question to the FBI and the DOJ is, why aren't the documents there? Why?
This thing, the fact that they got caught in this, like, there are so many people now, both in and outside the government, independent journalists, mainstream journalists, just people like me who are just going live and trying to figure this shit out, um, are never going to give up on trying to see what's going on here and to get justice for this situation and to really also um, uncover what this shows about the wealth disparities that exist in this world and what it encourages.
They've been removed.
The White House and the president say the president has been exonerated by the release of the Epstein files. The Department of Justice remains under fire for withholding or redacting an estimated 3 million of the 6 million pages believed to be in the files.
Yeah, it is something that I'm sure women have to deal with constantly, and I saw it definitely when I was both in the club scene and in activism, and especially with men in these particular positions in the spotlight or in power, because they get this kind of psychosis or something. I don't know what it is that because I've heard these people speak and like um they think that everybody wants them just because they're in the position that they're in. And if anybody ever looks to them as a mentor like Larry Summers, they take it as like an attraction thing, not as like this person's literally trying to learn about the job that you're interested in, you know? It's wild. Um, and there were a lot of the all the scandals that came out during Me Too and the things that even in the smaller industries, I'm not talking about like the mainstream stuff, but like the local club industry stuff that came out and in the activism groups, like it was pretty crazy. And it's stuff that you don't even recognize a lot of times. And they got away with it forever. And now they kinda have to step down, but nobody even really looks at some of the worst of it, you know what I mean? It's just, like, casually mentioned. But these are the things that, Adam Cochran here pointed out about the, Bill Gates admission and the statement that he made to his company. So, he admits he had affairs with 2 Russian women, claims Epstein found out later about the affairs. Epstein later paid for one of the women's education and asked Gates to reimburse him. Epstein is known to have trafficked women from Eastern Europe. Epstein paid for tuition of his models as about 30% of it was tax deductible as a business expense. So Epstein deducted that stuff from his taxes. If he paid 100K, deducted expenses, and had someone reimburse 100K, he netted about 35K on that transaction. That that probably had a lot to do with him making money from getting these people to donate things and then claiming the tax benefit. That's pretty crazy. Tuition payments are common money laundering methods due to their scale too, and they seem philanthropic. I always mess that one up. So they are rarely scrutinized. Paying down tuition debt was also the exact arrangement between Epstein and Prince Andrew. We know earlier indictments also named Eastern European operators with known Kremlin ties during a time that Russia used trafficked women as honeypots for compromise on U.S. businessmen. The fact that both of the women just happen to be Russian and that Epstein is asking for reimbursement payment for tuition does not look good. He should be questioned under oath under Congress, is what he said. And yeah, that definitely does not look good. And it makes me wonder why he admitted this to his like let's look for his because remember a couple weeks ago he was given all those interviews where he denied the like anything being true to that letter, and now he specifies that they were Russian. um you know, that's kind of weird. It makes me think that something has happened in between now and then that he's trying to get ahead of or something, you know what I mean? I'm looking to see if we could find his video from okay, so let's see if one of these has it.
I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him. No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. It just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I
This
did
was
that.
3 weeks ago that he was saying this. The Clintons did agree. I'm not sure when that's happening though. So yeah, he claims it was all false and then 3 weeks later says, "Up, you got me," you know? So, I'm not sure what's up with that. I feel like there's probably more gonna come out on him that he's trying to get ahead of, because why would he turn around and admit this 3 weeks after lying unless something came out?
Former Norwegian
So, this this is the craziest one, and this is the one that I was talking about earlier that might bring some Nobel Prize things into question. Let's see.
Prime Minister Torbjørn Jagland on the left here is among the latest batch of high-profile politicians and business executives to face scrutiny over their relationship with late U.S. sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Police searched Jagland's homes on Wednesday, and he was questioned on suspicion of aggravated corruption. Jagland has said he was
This is the former prime minister of Norway and also was on the board or the chairman of the Nobel Prize Committee. So this story was from a week ago, but today, more recently, like yesterday or something like that, news came out that he had actually tried to take his own life after this happened. So that's the thing that we're going to look into. And we're also going to look into the potential that there was something shady going on with the Nobel Prize and the two friends of Epstein that got a Nobel Prize from this guy. One of them appears in the files like hundreds of times.
looking forward to helping to clarify the situation. Norway's parliament has announced a rare external inquiry into the foreign ministry's link to Epstein. And the World Economic Forum has also started an independent investigation of its Norwegian CEO. All have denied any involvement with Epstein's crimes. Current Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre said on Friday it was crucial that the relationships between prominent Norwegians and Epstein be fully investigated.
It is a very serious suspicion, and the circumstances that have been uncovered must be taken very seriously. I am glad that I live in a constitutional state where the prosecuting authorities take their responsibility seriously, and I will be careful not to get involved because it is their responsibility.
In the U.S., Goldman Sachs accepted the resignation of its chief legal officer, Kathy Rumler. Recent documents released by the U.S. Justice Department showed she accepted gifts from Epstein and advised him on how to address media inquiries regarding his crimes. Rumler is the most high profile banking executive to depart after the release of the latest Epstein files. Meanwhile, Dubai port giant DP World said on Friday its chairman and chief executive Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem had resigned following mounting pressure over his alleged ties to Epstein. Members of Congress said bin Sulayem's name appeared in the recent release of Epstein files, prompting renewed questions over his past interactions with Epstein. Reuters was not able to independently verify the allegation.
So check this out. Now, this is another person, former Norwegian premier, hospitalized after attempt amid Epstein corruption charges. So he tried to take himself out. Former Nobel Prize chairman Thorbjørn Jagland probably, is in critical condition after facing gross corruption charges linked to the Epstein case. Former Norwegian Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland was reportedly hospitalized last week following a suicide attempt, days after he was charged with gross corruption linked to his relationship with late convicted child offender Jeffrey Epstein, according to a media report Tuesday. See, like, why can't we just hit our people with something vague like gross corruption? Or, like, you would think that they could throw a RICO charge in here, right? That people got to be getting hit with RICO. If they could throw RICO at rappers and shit. I mean, I guess that didn't stick, did it? I don't think it did. The news was first broken by Inyeter, which cited a rock-solid source confirming that Jagland's condition remains serious. The specific medical facility treating the 75-year-old statement has not been disclosed, so there's a good chance that he might not make it through this ordeal. The former Nobel Prize chairman is in critical condition after facing gross corruption charges linked to the Epstein case. Jagland is one of Norway's most prominent political figures, having served as Prime Minister and as Secretary General of the Council of Europe. He was also a long-standing member of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, serving as its influential chairman from 2009 to 2015 before leaving in 2020. So what I did was I looked at this time period, 2009 to basically 2020. Closer in 2000, in this area, but it kind of seems like it's 2009 to 2020. And either way, I think he made decisions there along the way. Regardless, some of Epstein's friends got Nobel Prizes during that time. And Epstein also joked with Steve Bannon about how Trump would lose his shit if he knew that Epstein had the guy who controlled the Nobel Prize. And you got to imagine that Epstein had blackmail on this guy too, because this guy was caught not just trading information, but also on the more sketchy end of things. The disclosure about Jagland's hospitalization has triggered a debate about media transparency in Norway. Inyeter reported that Norwegian media, via the Norwegian Editors Association and selected editors, reached an understanding February 17th with Jagland's lawyers, Anders Brusvedt, that the incident would not be covered. So this happened in February 17th, and they tried to keep this out of the news. And now there's a big controversy in Norway about censorship. While the publication acknowledged the sensitive nature of the hospitalization, it argued that Jagland's status as a public figure and the gravity of the criminal charges justified the disclosure. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is how do we know that this was him trying to do it to himself and not somebody? I mean, maybe I'm jumping to too many conclusions there, but it's happened so much in this case where people have just disappeared when they're getting ready to go on trial. I think we should look more into what this guy knew. You know what I mean? Try to see what this guy new, but there was this thing called the Confronting Gravity Conference where all these scientists were at. Jeffrey Epstein held it in 2006. Um, that's where a lot of the scientists that were discussed come up. But let's look at um, this guy right here, Kip Thorne. He won a Nobel Prize in 2017. Let's take a look at this guy. Kip Thorne, Nobel Prize in Physics in 2017. Let's see. One consequence of Einstein's general theory of relativity is the existence of gravitational waves. Kip Thorne has made crucial contributions to the developments of detector laser technology. Yeah, we definitely need those FBI forms. So yeah, let's take a look at how many times this guy appears. Let's see if he appears in the emails, and let's try to look for him in the files because I have a link to a different Epstein search site where he appeared. Let's see if there's any. Maybe I should just bring up that link I had. It was on epsteinexposed.com. It had all the different files. So let's see. Kip Thorne is mentioned in documents. He has 90 document mentions. So I'm going to look through these. And I'm just kind of that's a bummer. I'm just following a lead here.